Greetings and salutations and welcome to another episode of How Haven Did It. This week we're going to be covering Waterdeep as part of the Hoard of the Dragon Queen, as part of the Tyranny of Dragons. So, I love backstories, and so of course I've been trying at every instance I possibly could to find some way of incorporating my characters' backstories into the Tyranny of Dragons. This has been a challenge since I'm used to actually homebrewing everything and making it all up from scratch. So it's easy to find ways to stick it in there. Finding places that I can put backstory into a preconceived adventure has been the struggle for me. I've been looking for the spots where there's some dead space, some dead time, and this happened to be one of those times where I decided that the treasure is going to get to Waterdeep, and then they're going to have a day or so that they could relax, or I could give them that day. If the players decided they were going to try and explore Waterdeep a bit, I was totally going to let the treasure just sit there. It can simmer in the Roadhouse warehouse, which is the next major change for anybody who's actually played this adventure or has read the book. You're supposed to, in the way the story is laid out in the source book, have the party adventurers go to the other side of Waterdeep, hire on with the road crew, and join another caravan to go another couple of days north to this Roadhouse warehouse that is part of the construction crews rebuilding the road. And while that all makes sense, I was getting burned out on travel, and caravan travel specifically, and it really felt like just more of the same. And now I really do, now that I've played this, when I read it, I thought, okay, cool, we'll play it along. But playing it, man, I'm tired of caravan travel at this point. We had 6 game sessions of just caravan travel, and I'm done. So it was time to change it up. So I decided that I was going to move that roadhouse and make it a warehouse in Waterdeep, and we're just going to skip that section entirely. They're going to go from the warehouse directly into the Mirror of the Dead Men. So I have moved the Mirror of the Dead Men right to within a couple of miles of the edge of Waterdeep now. So I guess in my Sword Coast, the Mirror of the Dead is slowly encroaching, every year getting a little bit closer to Waterdeep, so it's right on the edge. It just seems to make more sense. If nothing else, it sped things up. It allowed us to get right into the Mirror of Dead Men. Yes, they're still traveling and they're doing things, but now we're traveling through swamps and canoes and stuff, and it was just a lot more fun. But let's back this train back up. The treasure can simmer. Let's turn into Luo Toa, who wanted the player. Now, the player Adonis, who's playing Luo Toa, really wanted to do some kind of challenge every, 5, 6, 7 levels so that he can, challenge one of the elements and kind of find a way to level up or get a belt, kind of like you would do in a martial arts. So this is the point where I decided a great place to have a temple to the Way of the Four Elements would be in Waterdeep. That's a great big city. Of course they'd have a temple. So he finally reached it, and actually I said at level 5 he'd be able to do it, but at level 5 they were just getting into Baldur's Gate, and I'd already kind of set Baldur's Gate aside for Remy, so I didn't want to do it then. So we fast forward, now he's in Waterdeep, time for Luo Toa to shine, he gets to take on a challenge. And so I really thought about it, and I watched a lot of Avatar, The Last Airbender, and a bunch of other research into elemental-based religions, and then also into kind of martial arts stuff, and I was like, all right, so a challenge, well, okay, let's make it an element. And so I planned which element it would be, and I did choose that it would be fire. But in the lore that I told him is that you're going to focus on your chi, and your chi will choose which element to fight first, and then bring an element out. And that was the way that we decided that those monks would do this kind of challenge. So every time you go, every temple of a certain size has a challenge ground where you can go, and it's near a place of power of the elemental planes, and you can summon something through from the elemental planes to fight, to show that you can beat that element and control that element and can take on that element. So part of this is the fact that I wanted something different. I wanted something, not a red dragon. They're going to fight red dragons later on in the campaign. I didn't want that to happen now. I needed something different. And as it happens, I bought a lawnmower. I know, a lawnmower. There you go. You're looking at me thinking, a lawnmower, what the hell are you talking about? Well, this is what happens when you do a heck of a lot of Google searching for miniatures and dragons and all kinds of other stuff, and then you suddenly change gears when you buy a house and search for a lawnmower. So some algorithm somewhere, while I was shopping for a lawnmower, I went and I purchased it, and then it pops up this thing like, hey, you might also like this guy. And I went, you're right. I totally want that guy. So I placed my order for pickup for my lawnmower, and I threw this dragon in for like $20 or $15 or whatever for pickup from the local store that I was buying them from. And I said, hey, look, a lava dragon. So there's how buying a lawnmower ends up with my party getting attacked by lava dragons. Dragon, just one. So that's how they fought it. It was great. It was awesome. It was epic. It was just phenomenally fun. I kind of did a bunch of searching around on how you would possibly change. I found some other people who had done lava dragons before, and I kind of reskinned an adult red dragon through a couple of changes. I really like the idea of the fact that every time he gets hacked or damaged, that lava sploots from it, and could damage anybody standing nearby, which suddenly makes being a melee person a real pain in the butt. This is how you handle barbarians doing a lot of damage. They got to make that roll. Now, he went down like 3 times through the course of that entire encounter. She passed out because she just kept taking so much damage. But she wasn't even insistent on being the front person. And that's what a tank does, right? But finally, they were hit. And then on top of that, let's throw in the fire snakes just for a good measure, because I wanted that element of extra minions kind of thing. And I would totally stole the minion rules from Edition 4, so that, like, if you hit the snakes, they just died. I didn't really worry about hit points on them because they were just there to be fodder. They were there to be a pain in the butt. As it turns out, Fire took it upon herself to remove all the fire snakes. It worked out pretty well. There was like 3 of them throughout the entire encounter. So that's that. And again, I love the idea of a goblin assistant and a tiefling, being in charge of this temple. Which was a lot of fun. It was a good time. Luo Toa loved it. The party, I think, loved it too. It was a lot of good time. The only problem we really ran into is, unfortunately, we were missing 2 players, so I ended up having to play Fire and Arkin throughout that entire encounter. But it happened. It worked out pretty well. It was awesome. So, alright. So before they actually decided, they're going over to figure out what they're going to do about the roadhouse and the warehouse. And as they're on their way back to that inn, they do come across their old friend Leoshin, who decides that he has a meeting he has set up for them, and it is over at the Twining Portal, and they decide to make their way over there to meet up with him. He has some people he'd like them to meet, but to further on their quest, and enter. As they go into the Yawning Portal, make their way to a secret private room in the upstairs. They are met by Leoshin. They meet up with their old friend Unthar, as well as they then see Luriel Silverhand introduced to, as well as, and I'm blanking on the last name, Dylan Winterhound is sitting there. Now, while they're there, they decide that they also are going to talk about the fact that Gemma, who was the little gnome that they came across on the caravan up here that they ran into right after the incident with Timothy, whether or not they should be allowed to have somebody from one of the darker guilds be involved. The party takes a quick vote along with the individuals resting on the table and decided that she should not be. And she is removed from the building by the wolf with Dylan. They talk about what's going on. They fill them in. The party fills the rest of the council members in. And this is now the Ocean's Quiet Council. And they fill them in on what they've found, what they've been following. The council then tells them the longevity of what's going on. They give them a bit more information about the cult activities and the fact that they know that they're trying to raise enough gold to appease Tiamat when they release her, so that they don't kill the cult, and allows the cult to continue serving their queen. This then leads to the fact that that nobody else right now in the Sword Coast is willing to believe this, and that they need the party to continue searching out and finding what's going on so that they can bring more information before the actual Council of Lords to get the whole backing of the Sword Coast as an actual threat, as opposed to just being something going on in the background. The rest of these individuals are part of, obviously, the Ocean is part of the Harpers, and then you have Onthar as part of the Gauntlet. And this now introduces the Emerald Enclave with Silverhand, as well as one other faction, which I'm totally blanking on the name of, and I forgot to write down as I just looked at my notes. So I apologize. Somebody go tell me who Dylan's with. I apologize, guys, and put it in the notes. But they all decided that they need to continue to follow, and they get offered that this is really what needs to be done for the better of the Sword Coast and to stop Tiamat. And they insist that the party continue to follow into the Mirror of the Dead Men to find out what's going on. That leads us back to the fact that we go back to the roadhouse/warehouse, and they do decide to follow, get more in depth in trying to follow the treasure. Enter Bog. Bog is a half-orc who's in charge of the Roadhouse. That was a true character. I just made it just him and none of the other cultists. That was just a whole lot of fluff. And, I mean, we've already had them fighting amongst each other, and the cultists really lost the popularity game on the caravan trip up here. I really felt like them trying to like get revenge would have been just way too much. So it's just Bog and the treasure. He's in his very secure warehouse. But I give it to Nahis. She made some very powerful arguments about, you know, being more than just your base instincts and being more than a brute, and that orcs can raise themselves up, and really, she made some compelling arguments. I made her make some persuasion rolls throughout it, and she rolled really high, and he rolled pretty low, and there you go. Bogrod switched sides, actually, by the time they were done. So, well done, Nahis, a.k.a. Elizabeth, who runs that character. It was a really good bit of game, a lot of good role-playing. I mean, he was really just a hired hand. He was hired to sit there and guard gold, and when a very attractive half-orc comes to you and says, you should be more, with a bottle of elven wine, he just drank it up, and I don't mean just the wine. So, at this point, Bog has decided that he is going to be helpful. They now have filled in and gone to the Mere Dead Men, and that is where we ended it for that night, actually. I think they eventually made it a little bit further, but I'll pick up what happens to the Mere Dead Men, because technically now we're all into Chapter 5, and I want to kind of keep those together. So, that is how Haven did it. Some big changes, with moving the Roadhouse all the way to Waterdeep, and getting rid of another chunk of travel. I'm not the only one. I've noticed a lot of people who did the same thing in some of the forums and groups that I've talked to who've run these campaigns. It's not very uncommon that you ditch the last little bit, or they ditch some other section for this to be your travel port. I was just done. I wanted off of the wagon. I wanted to do something different, and swamps and canoes and traveling by that kind of stuff in a more dangerous setting really did it for me, and I really wanted to just get right into the Mere of the Dead Men. That seemed like the big hook, the big nice juicy information and plot points and stuff to throw in there. So that's how Haven did it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, contact me, comment down below. I love talking about Dungeons & Dragons, love talking about being a DM, and all of the stuff that goes with that. I will never monetize this channel, but if you want to support me in all my efforts, by all means, you can sign up for my Patreon, where I'm going to try and actually make some one-page adventures, start those out there about once a month, along with the help of my daughter. We're going to try and gear them towards one-shot adventures for families, specifically. Just more concepts than anything else you can use for either Pathfinder and or Dungeons & Dragons, and at any level. Or you can buy my card game, 5-Minute Sword Fight, based on the Swords of Valour Lifesteal Combat show that I perform in, as well as teach Lifesteal Combat. Or you could buy my Chainmail Dice Pouches on my Etsy store, and now all of those things help me out in some fashion or another. With that, I bid you a fond farewell, and may you make all of life's saving throws. And I wanted something different. They're going to be red dragons later in this campaign, and I wanted something different. Plus, I bought a lawnmower. I know, right? You're thinking, what does buying a lawnmower have to do with a lava dragon? Well, I'll tell you, when you're shopping for lawnmowers, I completely lost it. Hold. So as they're getting ready to go in to talk to Bog, they run into their old friend, Leotian. Leotian says that, hey, he needs to talk with them, and if they would meet them at the Red Sun Inn, a little ways down, that he would like to introduce them to a few people, and when they do, they end up actually coming across a few other higher... I just totally skipped over an entire portion of this. Fuck me. God damn it. I forgot about the council meeting. So they had the council meeting, then they went to Bog. So put this part before that part.